Hello and welcome to the Cynic Weekly. I'm your host, Christopher Gallagher. It's December. It's the 18th of December 2025. The last Cynic Weekly of the year, actually. The more I think about it, that's just came to me. So the last Cynic Weekly of the year. I'm delighted to say... you wanted to say, at least desperate to say something. Stuart, go.
The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Ooh. Oh, okay.
It's not bad, is it?
It's not great.
It is what it is, though.
It is. That's the dulcet tones of Stuart Diggin. Hello, Stuart. How are you?
I got soaked in some very heavy rain on the way here, and we're about to talk about maybe the worst period of time in the club's modern history. So I am great.
Good.
Looking forward to it.
You look
for the festive cheer.
You look great. You look nice and healthy. I don't know.
We've got our health at least. That's all.
Our good friend Barry Gallagher's also here. Barry, how are you, sir?
Very well, all things considering. Merry Christmas to everyone, and looking forward to dissecting the bin fire that is our football club.
The bin fire that is our football club, indeed. We're going to talk about the game yesterday. We'll probably briefly touch on the League Cup final as well. We'll talk about the manager. We'll talk about the board. We'll talk about Peter Lawwell. And then we'll cover the Aberdeen game. Don't quite know how we'll cover it. We'll talk about what we think might happen. But so we'll probably finish on that.
Another defeat.
Okay, look, we're going to have to try and look back at the game. Barry was at the game, so we'll certainly get your perspective and point of view on it. Myself and Stuart, we watched it on TV, so we can talk about that. But the opening we've got some questions from subscribers and listeners to the show. We will have an opening question. The opening question is as simple as this. Is Wilfried Nancy's position untenable? And I'd like a why as well from both of you. We'll start with you, Barry.
Yes, I think it is. I don't think there's any way back. I think that with the reports that are coming out tonight, I think that the club aren't going to sack him until Sunday at least. But I think even if we were to win on Sunday, it kind of feels like it's just sort of prolonging the inevitable, delaying the inevitable. I think he's miles out of his depth. I think I do have sympathy for him in some respect, but I just don't think this system of his is going to work, and he seems sort of naive and sort of tied to that system. Again, that's perhaps not his fault because the board knew what they were getting when they got him in, but surely to God you must see when things aren't working that you've got to be sort of braver and bolder to think, right, can I do something here to kind of save this job and save the season essentially? But I don't think he is, and he keeps making the same mistakes again. Even though there were things that were positive last night, I still don't think they were that great. I think people are maybe kidding themselves on that they're seeing green shoots because things are so bad, and I get that people don't want to be negative all the time. I totally agree with that, but I just think this guy is not the manager for us. That's not to say he can't go on and be a success somewhere else, but I don't think there's any chance in hell that he's going to be a success at Celtic. And if we want to save the season, or at least try and look to make a move as if we're trying to save the season, then I think he has to go. I'm actually a bit disappointed that he hasn't been removed from his position today, but I see there's no way that even if he was to get his players in, you're talking about maybe 3 or 4 weeks till they potentially can even have an impact in the team, and I think it could be too late by then. And that's not to say that if you bring in a manager or another caretaker that results would improve, because I think this team are done. I think we've been saying that since the summer, but it's just years of mismanagement that has led to this point, so it shouldn't really be a shock for people. I don't think it is. I think that's why people are angry, but I don't think they're shocked, because it's sort of death by 1,000 cuts. This has been coming. This isn't something I noticed. Brian Wilson, sorry to jump ahead, but Brian Wilson said problems that have arisen recently. It's not recently, and if you think that, you're not tuned into what's happening at Celtic. But I think the phrase has been used a lot this week in various different platforms that he seems to be the wrong person in the wrong movie, but I see no way back for him, and I think for the benefit of him as well, I think it's time for him to go.
As Barry says there, Stuart, lots of green shoots yesterday. We can certainly get just a bit of fun, just to try and lighten the mood, but have a bit of a laugh.
Maybe a rap.
Yeah, could do a rap for you. Question for you, Stuart, is Wilfried Nancy's position untenable?
It's insane that we're having this conversation after last week. We were talking about the reaction to the Hearts game and how over the top we felt like some of the criticism was. Now we've got a bigger sample size, having seen 4 games, 3 in the last week. But I would be inclined to say that I think his position is untenable, and there's been so much noise around him personally, his personality, some of his quirks, some things that have happened. I'm sure we'll talk about them. But I think for me, the biggest thing is the way that the players are playing for him, or a lack thereof. And I think there's some pretty galling sort of trends in just such a short period of time of players that just don't look like they are interested in what he does or buying into what he does. And a lot of just really strange sort of PR, I suppose. Like Callum McGregor, the last time he spoke to the press was before the Roma game, hasn't been seen since, at a time at which Callum McGregor, to be fair, has always been quite notorious for fronting up when there's been tough times. Hasn't done a single press conference since, hasn't really
spoken out.
There hasn't really been any senior players going. It's very much, today was Paolo Bernardo. We've had Liam Scales and Austin Trusty in mixed zones after the cup final, and you had Johnny Kenny, a player who's so far out of the picture that he shouldn't really ever be in that position. So I think that I would say that there are green shoots sometimes in how they're playing. In each game he's had like a sort of 20-30 minute period where Celtic have kind of purred and played really good football, but it's been so easily undone with direct play and physicality that I don't think that there's a team in the league that we can actually compete with over 90 minutes. And I think that last night was the best example of that, where the first half was really exciting. We created lots of chances, but we created lots of chances which you didn't take, but also at a point in which Dundee United just completely stood off us, didn't press, didn't play with any intensity, and allowed Celtic players all the time in the world to sort of figure out how they should be doing it. And as soon as they upped that, well, as soon as they got the boy off, he'd had a rotten time against Maeda as well. As soon as they upped their physicality, went a bit more direct, Celtic just stopped playing completely and just cannot handle even the remotest bit of adversity. And I thought it looked pretty inevitable even after the first 10 minutes of the second half that that's the way the game was going to go. The St Mirren game was very much like that as well, where it's not even like the Hearts game where things had gone against us, but the players were rallying and really, really trying and pushing and eventually get that late goal with Tierney. In 4 games, in 14 days, whatever it is, you're actually seeing a downward trend, I think, in some of the responses from some of the players. I think some of the players in that team are an absolute disgrace, and I would happily never see them play for Celtic again. There are players there that are not capable of playing for Celtic, and I think that if anything, they get a little bit more slack. But there are senior members of that team, and there are players that have been there for a long time that are not pulling their weight, that are not doing the basic things. And because of that, I don't see how Nancy can turn that round. In the court of public opinion, if the team were purring and they would go and win their next 10 games, then I think that you can slowly get players and get fans back on side. But if the players aren't on side, that's not going to happen. And I think that the Celtic board this season have just made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And I do think that the decision to give him a stay of execution to Sunday is just another in this long line of bad decisions where there is no point keeping him one defeat away from losing his job, because all it does is then limit the amount of time that you have with whoever is coming in to replace him, whether that's on an interim basis, limits the amount of time before the window. And ultimately, if it's going to be from 3 drop points, do you really see Celtic winning their next 4 or 5 games? I don't. So it's going to happen eventually. Why don't you just do it just now? Be decisive.
I was just going to make the point that Stuart was saying there about the board, but again, not to jump too far ahead, but obviously travelling up to Dundee last night is when the video came out from Nicholson and Wilson, and that just riled people up. Like, this time of year, the weather, again, it's another night like tonight is wet and wild. People probably even work early or whatever and making arrangements to get up there this close to Christmas, and then you're talked down to like that by the board. And I think that just heaped pressure on Nancy as well, because as soon as things started to go wrong on the pitch, it was only going to go one way in the stands. And the board would speak about, oh, we need to be united and unified, but they're not acting like it. So I think that people are quick to say the sort of, oh, what, your protests aren't going to achieve anything, that sort of brigade. They say, oh, things that the fans are doing are not inspiring the players on the pitch. But what the board did last night was disgraceful. And I think that basically abetted the sort of attitude from the fans to what was happening on the pitch, because you can't rile people up when we're the people who put money into the club. We don't take money out.
Can you believe they released that video at that time?
I know.
I can.
Yeah, I was.
The whole business of preaching unity and finally hearing from Nicholson, and he wants unity, but only after 2 minutes of accusing the Celtic fans of hounding out this club legend in Peter Lawwell, and the statement, fucking hell, the statement is insane. It's just, we've talked about Trumpian ramblings. It's unhinged, the dystopian nature of it, just wild. And yeah, why that can't have happened the day before, just
today,
or to just anything to give the manager some sort of just distance from it or separation from it. And as Barry says, you don't want people an hour before the game getting that kind of information. And I think whatever your opinion of Nancy and how he's handled his games from a tactical perspective, some of the things he said, there is a lot of evidence now that perhaps he is out of his depth, and I think he has been a bit naive perhaps with the scale of the task at hand and maybe just the environment that he was coming into. But he's not wrong when he asks for people to consider the context, and I can't remember, certainly in Celtic terms, a manager being dealt a worse hand and being given as little support as he has publicly. And even Michael Nicholson last night saying that he viscerally supports Wilfried Nancy, that's not the way to do it. Go and sit beside him at a press conference when you unveil him. Don't be such a shitebag that you won't sit with him. And get Jerry McCulloch to do your unveilings and stuff like that. He's been on an island since he got here, and that's kind of where they're happy to leave him stranded.
See, on that as well, with the whole removing access for fan media, that again has isolated Nancy, because I know that the majority of the fans now do agree that it's time for him to go. I think I'm safe in saying that. But after the Hearts game, before the Roma game, the fan media would have asked supportive questions of him. They wanted to find out about his personality. I feel I don't know anything about the guy.
Don't know anything about me though.
No. And that's the kind of stories you want to hear. I was even thinking last night, like Ampadu, like I know that Nancy said that Celtic's his club. Why not do like a piece on him? And that's the kind of questions that
that's it.
Fan media would ask, and that gets people on side because you get to see the human element of him and the nice things about him.
I might be wrong, but I don't think I was thinking about this on the way over about, you know, his lack of support publicly facing from the board to begin with. I don't think that there's been ever an official statement from the club about who the coaching staff are.
Well, that's an interesting point, because
it was Anthony Joseph that reported it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and also who is on his staff, because there was a picture of Steve McManus on the training field today.
Was there?
Steve McManus was on the training field today with
Nancy.
Manager. But
yeah,
that's never been announced. So Stephen McManus on the training videos, Steve McManus is giving orders and all that. Okay. So like, what the fuck are we doing? This is. I'll give you my thoughts on Nancy. I think his position's untenable, and I don't necessarily think it's all to do with him. It's to do with how he's been treated by the club. He's been dropped into a situation. I don't think he's been given any fucking guidance. Some of the stuff he said at press conferences he needed guidance.
Yeah.
You know, today with the stuff about Carlisle and all that, it just starts to reek of really bad PR, if nothing else. No one's guided him. No one's helped him. He's been left to his own devices. Also, I was thinking about this today. I think that a lot of the support will see him as the board's man, right? Now, any manager that's appointed by the board will be the board's man, of course, right? But it to me, it just feels like the heightened questioning of the board, the heightened displeasure at how the board are acting. It's almost like Martin O'Neill was announced and everyone was a bit upset at first, but then Martin O'Neill did the press conference and it brought every one of us back to being 12 or 14 or 16. and it made you think like, oh, okay. And Martin O'Neill became that conduit between the board and the support. It became like a wall. And that was supportive for everyone. He could protect the players. He could keep the fans on side. You take him out and you drop a guy in there. You don't give any background to who he is. He instantly goes and tries to make things, change things. And it obviously it has not worked out well. The board are not, the support are not only going to look at him as someone who's not doing his job right, but they're also going to look at him as the board's guy.
Yeah.
And so I think he's been given a terrible hand. I had a level of, me and Stu were talking about it before we started recording, I had a level of relief that he was potentially on his way out today, because I thought, take him out the firing line, because I like him. I think he's someone who, whether he's a good football manager overall, we're never going to find that out. But he seems like quite a cool guy and all that. And I know people don't like him, and that's fair. But to me, I think there's a lot of, I like it, certain aspects of his attitude and the fact that he kind of wants to change everything. I'm just a bit disappointed how it's worked out, but I do think he has to go, and he probably has. The fact that if we get a draw against Aberdeen, if we score a last minute equaliser against Aberdeen after a fairly mundane, turgid performance, is that going to improve him?
What if we win 1-0 with like a really turgid performance, and then you can't really sack a manager when he's just won, but you can see that the problems are still pretty deep rooted. And I would never ever want to be in a position of rooting against Celtic, and I think that there are sections of the support that kind of are. I was thinking about this as well. There is so little to like about Celtic at the moment. At any level, honestly, like maybe I said this to you guys, someone asked me the other day who my favourite Celtic player was in the current squad, and I was at an absolute loss. I was like, it's just so unlikable. The football's been dreadful.
Who's your favourite?
It's a difficult question. I say McGregor, but
I said Tierney or McGregor, but it's probably just because I still think that Tierney's a little bit untainted by this a wee bit.
Yeah, I get that.
And then some of the conduct from the board, the way that they've spoken about fans, some of the things that they've done to fans, talking about Don raids and bans here and bans there. It's disgusting, and it's not just like an embarrassment, because obviously it's embarrassing when your team loses 4 games in a row. It's embarrassing when situations like Wilfried Nancy's social media situation this week, they are embarrassing being associated with them. But I'm like ashamed to be associated with Celtic, the way that the Celtic board conducts themselves and speaks to people, and pretty much at all points, like, you're watching and you're supporting it of necessity in the hope that it's going to change, but it's really unpleasant just now.
I think one of you guys mentioned to me the other day about, it might have even been this time last week, about, or maybe on the agenda, you can check out the agenda, drops every Monday, thecynic.co. Our reputation, if Nancy is sacked after 4 games, Barry, what does that do to our reputation? If you're a manager and you're looking at it, you know, Celtic, huge club, huge support, good resources in terms of because everyone knows we've got money in the bank and all that. European football, you can sell all that side, but are the board going to back you if it means they can kind of save their skin a little bit? Because if Nancy's sacked and they bring back Martin O'Neill, which I think's got bad news written all over it, but if they did do that, then people would probably drop off. There's an element of the support that would not be as critical of the board if we start winning again. If you're a manager, you're like, well, if I'm under pressure, they're going to just pull the trigger on me. Yeah,
and I think we were talking about it earlier today, but you're seeing outlets who would never normally report on Celtic, reporting, giving them fairly lengthy coverage because it is a big story, because things like this don't happen. Like, I don't know if I mentioned yet, but it's the first time since 1978 we've lost 4 games.
Yeah.
But it does kind of leave a sort of stench around the club. And I was having this conversation maybe at the weekend with some friends that maybe up into the 90s, Celtic and Rangers both had this sort of thing that they hadn't had many managers in their history.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of just into the double figures, like 100 years.
Billy Maley was the manager for 800 years.
Yeah, but then we went through a period, sort of the late 90s, where we seemed to change a manager every season, didn't we? But yeah, it just kind of feels that we could be in for some kind of I don't want to say banter years, because I hate that when it's not
when it's us.
when it's us, yeah. But it feels like we are becoming a bit of a joke outfit, and it's the board they can't get anything right. Like I feel that, even like if you think about the law announcement, they could have sat on that, and if we'd lost like we did last night, that could have been put out today to try and take some heat off the manager. But no, they thought they would release it when a lot of people were already on their way to Dundee. Whether it would put managers off, I don't know, because you feel like clubs could do anything and there's still going to be managers interested.
But it's the quality.
It's the
level, isn't it? Scott Brown's not going to say no, put it that way.
I know. I just fear like I agree with you. I think if we were to bring O'Neill back, you might get like an uptick in results in the short term, but I just feel it's kind of kicking the can down the road to disaster, because this squad of players are hopeless, and then the next sort of pressing issue is the window opening, and if we don't have a permanent manager, who's going to make the signings? Is it going to be Tisdale? You would hope that if Nancy goes, he has to go too, but I don't have any faith in the club to do that. So it feels like we really are in a crossroads of where we go from a club, and as it stands right now, I don't think we're going to win the league, and then the sort of repercussions that will have for us going forward in Europe and stuff like that as well. So I think people are starting to be aware of how serious and how sort of critical this period is for Celtic, but I've got a feeling it's going to get worse than it is right now, and that's crazy to say after a sort of the 2 weeks of hell that we've had, but I feel that we aren't turning this around anytime fast, on or off the pitch.
Stu, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, said it earlier as well. I think that there's a very real possibility that Celtic could sort of enter a period of wilderness here, where we don't really have the sellable assets that we had over the last sort of kind of consistent conveyor belt of 2 or 3 players that's going to be the next one up. Obviously, Daizen Maeda is presumed to leave the club, if not in January. Stephen McGowan implied in the summer, but I think at that point you're probably pushing into the last year of his contract, and also he'll be 28, 29. He's not going to be like a £20 million.
I'd say you'd probably get 10 for him.
10, exactly. And then just over the piece, we are so light in bodies and so light in quality, with so few players on a hashtag pathway from the academy, that it's not something that you can just turn around. And especially if they've, hitched themselves so strongly to Paul Tisdale, and his first action of the transfer window is going to be selling one of the players that he sanctioned the signing of in the summer. And then you're also deciding whether or not you're going to sack the manager after 14 days that he put his head presumably on the chopping block to vouch for. And that's before you even get into his comments and stuff like that from through the week, which I know we'll touch on. So I think it's the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that Wilfried Nancy turns it around and he's really good and the players have bought in and he starts winning games, because anything other than that is a disaster. And even if you bring in O'Neill, Maloney, Fotheringham, whoever it is that's going to take on the team if Nancy goes on Monday, there is no resolution for how you improve that squad, and you've essentially written off an entire year, but stripped value off the club, stripped value off the players, and the type of manager that coming to Celtic against the backdrop of this particular season is probably the likes of a Wilfried Nancy, because why wouldn't you jump at the opportunity to manage one of the biggest clubs in the world? Great career stepping stone. So I don't know. I think the whole thing is fucked.
I mean, see what I was thinking. I think Wilfried Nancy won't be the Celtic manager by the Rangers game. I just don't think he will. Right. So. People clamouring to bring back Martin O'Neill, right? What I was thinking about the Swansea manager, Alan Sheehan, right? He was interim manager. He did really, really well, and they brought him back as full-time manager. It lasted, 2-3 months before he was sacked. And I'm not saying that would definitely happen with Martin O'Neill, but what I'm saying is, Barry, let's say it's O'Neill and Maloney, do you give them money? Will they give them money? I don't think they will. If it goes, if we get to February and their results are terrible, do they sack them? Like if you put Martin O'Neill and Maloney and you say they're going to be the managers to the end of the season, and then we get to March and we keep losing, or the results are really bad, do you then sack that? These are Jesus, it's fucked ice, Stu, sorry.
I know what you mean. Like, there's no. It's hard to sort of envisage how we get out of this, because the players are so low in confidence, and I know that was one of the things that O'Neill did, was instill a bit of belief.
But that was wearing off as well. That
was. The magic had started to kind of wear off, because there's only so much you can do with that squad. And yeah, but I really don't know. Like, I kind of think that they would maybe give them loans, and probably be loans from England. Maybe sort of Maloney and O'Neill's knowledge of the English game. And that's just
what's Muzzy is it up to?
I know, yeah.
Getting Guppy back?
Yeah, big Matt Elliott. He was sort of the defence.
I met Matt Elliott 3 or 4 times, and he was absolutely sound.
Love that.
There we go.
Just a really, really, really nice guy.
But yeah, I really don't know, because I don't know if there's the appetite. It's interesting because the board are starting to say that they acknowledge that there's problems, and that's a big sort of change from what they said when the collective made them, and also Dermot Desmond's statement, it was down to one man. But I really don't know. I don't know. Would you want sort of interim coaches to buy players? Probably not.
Oh.
But then what's the alternative, that you stumble on with this and loans whose heart's not really going to be in it? So, like I said earlier, I just feel that there is no hope right now, and I know that that's not what people want to hear, and people say we've still got the best squad in the country, but it's so lopsided. They're so low in confidence. I think Stuart's right. I think there's loads of them not playing for the manager. And just last night, see when the 4 minutes went on, and I think it was maybe into the final 4th minute, the ball was in the halfway line and there was no urgency to get it forward. I think they were kind of thinking, like, just let this finish and he'll be gone.
There's a lot. So I think there's quite a lot of that through. We can go into individuals if you want, but like, I thought Rio Hitati was so poor last night and just not doing basic stuff. And I know that the boy that scores their second, it's a wonderful hit.
It's a good player, him.
But the lack of an appetite to get out and press the ball is that's really basic stuff. See, another thing, for all that Nancy's been criticised for what he's saying in press conferences, I think his assessment of the players is pretty spot on. See, when he's been saying that, like, we're too soft, we absolutely are. It's complete powder puff stuff. Even after the Hearts game, he's like, I don't know why we're persisting with just lumping the ball into the box. That's not how we will score goals.
But then, why is he picking Anthony Ralston and Kasper Schmeichel? He has the opportunity to drop both of them for younger, fitter players. Donovan might be not good enough, right? He might very well be, but he does play on the right-hand side of a back three for the Scotland under-21s. So he has some knowledge of it, the way that Ralston clearly doesn't. Sinisalo, again, he might not be good enough just because we've not seen him. The small sample size we have seen of him, he looks to be quite accomplished in what he wants to do. He's obviously still a little bit raw, but play him. That's the issues I have with Nancy. Because I think that playing players out of position that are, square pegs and round holes and all that is bad enough, but when you've got other players who actually might do a job there, that I don't know why.
I think that's completely fair, and I think that is definitely like the naivety that people are speaking of. I also think it's a naivety that he obviously understands that we need to win games, but is willing to chop and change and experiment at a point in which we can't really do it. It's not pre-season. These are the most important games of our season. And yeah, it's extremely naive, but just some of the basic stuff. I was talking to my friend Sean about this yesterday. He was his take was that, the players have been so overloaded with information that they're thinking about where they're supposed to be, that the absolute basics of like how to pass and control a football is going out of their head at quite critical moments, which I think is quite valid. But I just think there's other instances. If you look at the Roma game, is a little bit of an outlier because you are talking about a much higher quality of opposition. But the second goal, when Sebastian Tenetke just stops running, just like I'm not getting back. That's not a player that it is a player. Sorry, that's a square peg in a round hole. He's not a wing back. It's not part of his game. But he's also not trying. He's just like, I can't do it, so I'm not gonna. And you're like, right,
someone you'd want in the trenches with you.
It's absolutely not someone you would want in the trenches with you. And then, I just think some of the comments in the press you're seeing from the likes of Scales, the likes of McCowan, they're not exactly given the best poker face with their ringing endorsement of the manager.
Yeah.
I said the closest that you've seen to anyone look properly impassioned and backing him was probably Bernardo today, but I think he's quite an eloquent young man, and also he's starting to get fucking football, so he's probably pleased at that.
These are the best manager played in Celtic.
I know.
In terms of, why did the Celtic board look at this guy, think, okay, this guy is, I guess you could put him under the bracket of a philosophy manager, where he has a philosophy, he plays a very specific style of play, and he's going to play that style of game. Why did they look at him and think, he's the guy we're going to bring in with crucial games and just plop him in and expect him to work? Because, okay.
Well, sorry, I know you were asking that to Barry. It's something I've been thinking about. I genuinely think there's not a football brain between them. I don't think they have a basic understanding of the notion, and I think that Tisdale is, wow, like all concerns have absolutely come home to roost about that guy. We didn't know anything about him, and now we hear more and more how involved he's been. I don't think that there's the level of quality in terms of like football thought and analysis of the impact of bringing in a manager with a squad that doesn't fit his playing style. I think they honestly think he's a really good coach, he's a man manager, he'll just make it work without seeing the glaring issues with the squad.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're putting too much faith in Tisdale. It seems he's been given the kind of keys to the kingdom.
Listen, he was League One Manager of the Month in 2018. So
silliest hat of the year.
Yes.
Yep. Hat awards.
He is like a character from I Think You Should Leave. Like, do you know what I mean?
See that? I remember reading the interview, and it's kind of resurfaced recently, but he said, like, why do you think I dress the way I do? Like, it's to show my players that we can reach high standards. Like, you're in a fucking cravat. Do you know what I always think? Like, I wonder what Martin O'Neill would think of Paul Tisdale. Like, even just, yeah. Anyway, but I feel like, as Stuart says, they bang on about being every interview is a Celtic man. Like, I don't care if they're a Celtic man. I want someone who is forward thinking, best in class, and with the salaries that we pay the board members, we could get Premier League quality football people. But it's as if the only football they know is Celtic, and they think because, as you mentioned, Stuart, that we had sellable assets for the last probably 10 to 15 years, where it started at the sort of 6-7 million mark, and it moved all its way up to 25, almost 30 with Matt O'Reilly. And they think they're doing a great job, but they seem to have no knowledge of football out with the four walls of Celtic Park. And they probably think, the fans have been crying out for modernisation, so we'll give it to this football doctor who has his own sort of algorithm, doesn't he? But who else is using that algorithm? I know that Tony Bloom his is worth millions, isn't it? And I know that Chelsea tried to buy it off him, but who realistically is going to want the algorithm of a sort of, what were the teams? He was at Bath, Exeter, and I can't remember who else. But what gives him the qualifications to pick our manager and pick our summer signings? Like, again, it's just kind of rumour, but I heard that he insisted on Yamada and Inamura, and all the sort of football people at the club were like, they're not good enough, but he pushed them through, and look where they are now. So I really don't know. I think that there is plenty of blame to go around, and I think that the relationship, obviously, with Tisdale and Ampadu has led us to Wilfried Nancy, and I just don't see like how he has how Tisdale has the qualifications to be in that role, to bring that manager in, and whether Nancy's credentials are good enough for the Celtic job, I suppose that's up for debate, but it's gone badly wrong, so I really don't know how we get out of this.
I can't see a situation where come the summer that either Nancy, Tisdale or Nicholson are still at the club. I think that Nicholson and Tisdale...
I can.
I think the two of them are so utterly replaceable because they're so bad at their jobs. And I think that Nancy, obviously, I agree with you. I think he's one defeat away, and there's no indication of anything other than that coming. I always thought that, in the sort of war against the board, that Lawwell would be the most difficult to unseat, and he's kind of the first rat off the sinking ship. I do think as well some of the timing with that, I think he's many things, but he's not an idiot, and he's sort of done some serious course and distance, and I think he knows exactly what direction this was going in, and he doesn't want to be attached to it. And, you know, there's been a lot of rumour that he was retiring anyway this season. I think that the manner in which he's gone out last night has tried to land a big blow against the Celtic collective and against the Celtic fan base. But I think the primary motivation is to put some distance between himself and this absolutely catastrophic bit of business.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's often talked about like how Rodgers coming back was Desmond's decision, where Lawwell really wanted Enzo Maresca or whatever. There probably has been quotes from Lawwell about when Nancy was appointed, but it just doesn't seem to me like a Lawwell type appointment.
No.
And maybe he's, as you say, I don't doubt that Peter Lawwell is a Celtic supporter, but he probably sees the shit show that is coming and will continue to come if Nancy isn't removed.
I think that's maybe indicative of why you got the announcement before the game, because he knows what 4 bad results on the bounce looks like compared to 3 with maybe a bit of uplift. So I think it's very calculated.
Sorry, just there's news there that Birmingham City and Norwich have renewed their interest in Yang for the summer.
Well, do you know what? He's had a bit of an uptick under Martin O'Neill and under thingy. So
it's wild that I think Yang's arguably been one of our best performers in these last run of games. I know he didn't play in the cup final, but that's a player that had his bags packed and would have left the club if we weren't so incompetent. It was literally down to paperwork and not answering the phone, all that sort of stuff. So what are you supposed to do? And I know that they're talking about Maeda willing to stay until the summer, and I do understand that. If Daisen Maeda ended up in a situation like Kyogo where he goes to a team and doesn't play,
it's World Cup year, brother.
World Cup year, like, you can't really be doing that. So I think that Maeda will stay, and I know he's not been great. Brilliant goal last night. He's not been great, but we would be completely lost without him because he's this sort of Swiss Army knife that can play anywhere.
He still might go, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, he still might go, and if he does...
You can understand him being selfish, though, because the club fucked him about. So, no, I'm not going. I want the right move for me.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely. Yeah. We're probably not going to go into detail or depth about the actual game in terms of, you know, the play or the stats or anything. What we'll do is we'll pick that up tomorrow. We've got our good friend Will. He will we'll do the weekend update, and we'll kind of do a bit of a debrief of the last couple of games. So if you're interested in stats and tactics and stuff like that, subscribe to the Cynic at thecynic.co or check out the Cynic on Patreon. You were at the game, Barry. What was the atmosphere like?
I think kind of getting into the ground, you could feel that there was the sort of almost shock. Shock's maybe not the right word because you're used to it now from the board, but just the way that was put out. I think it was 6 o'clock it landed, the interview, so 2 hours before kick-off. And then you could see that the kind of section next to the director's box, there was something getting unfurled there, and I thought that was exceptional.
Excellent.
Celtic shame. I think it was lost on a few people, particularly fans of other clubs, you know, why they pointed to the United fans, clearly not knowing that that's where the directors were housed. But I think it caught the board on the hop. It caught the sort of stewards and police by the board by surprise as well, because that section between them get filled up fairly quickly. And I thought that the fans were behind the team from the first whistle. You could hear the Celtic song ringing out, and fans were in fine voice. And as Stuart said, that the fans were responding to an improvement in things in the first half, and another day we could have had scored 3 or 4 goals. But then as things started to the second half kicked off, and I think, I don't know how many corners Dundee United got in that period. It felt like about 8, when it just corner after corner before the goals. And then it just got progressively sort of more heated, and the bad feeling around Celtic is evident. And one thing I maybe do take exception with is, like, I know everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it doesn't sit easy with me when people are sort of disparaging about the way support, when people have, and that's not on me because I don't go to every away game, but just kind of dictating to them what they should be feeling and how they should be supporting the club, etc. I doesn't really sit easy with me, but I think we were supportive of the team, but you can only call it as you see it, and as things deteriorated at half time and onwards into the second half, obviously there was the songs for Martin O'Neill, and obviously songs about Nancy, where to go to, etc. And then I think last night the thing that was encouraging for me was that maybe in the first half when there was anti-board songs, not everyone was joining in, but in the second half, again, not everyone, but the vast majority. And it was just a culmination of years of mismanagement. And what else can you do? Like, if you're at the stadium, it's raw, you're witnessing it, you're there firsthand, and people are going to voice their displeasure as well. So, yeah, just that point, it doesn't sit easy with me, people saying, oh, they're out of order or whatever, and that's not to say that the fans can be out of order, because I know sometimes emotions boil over, but I really don't like that when people are kind of dictating to how fans should feel when they're at the game.
This is what I think they should do. No, I'm joking. That picture of Chris Mackay taking pictures of the support, Stuart, I think that will become an iconic picture in terms of what potentially could happen in terms of, changes and all that. But it just really unsettled me. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's just, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to bite my tongue a little, I suppose. I think that there's just a lot of behaviour that is against the rhetoric that the club are trying to sort of peddle with their narrative, that they're like, we've just been trying to run the football club and
we've not done anything.
We've not done anything wrong. And I don't understand, even with the Ultras banned for now a number of weeks, they still just keep pushing this message that it's a small minority of Celtic fans. Those chants were loud on the telly last night, and you hear them at all games now. It's not an isolated thing, and it's not a small group, and it's not definitely coming from young hooligan fans like it's kind of been suggested. And an act like that, I don't know what Chris Mackay gets paid. What, 500k or so? Something it's sort of put up. I think that for £500,000 a year, when you're in a position of such authority at an institution with the gravitas of a club like Celtic, sorry, that sounds really like a Rangers thing to say.
I quite like that.
The institution of Glasgow Celtic. I just mean that maybe for 500 grand, you just eat that one and you take that on the chin if people are kind of criticising you. And I'm sure it's really difficult. I'm sure it's uncomfortable. The whole point of the protest movement is to make them feel uncomfortable, and that I'm not suggesting anyone should threaten them or anything like that. It's just that is the nature of the protest. It's to let them know vocally, viscerally, we don't agree with how you're doing things, and this is how passionate we feel about it. And just that wanton act of almost like thumbs up and mocking is the exact thing that we're trying to sort of rally against these people that are in control of the club. And again, it doesn't sit well with me that Peter Lawwell's sort of massive victim card statement, the way that he spoke to people at that AGM, telling them to behave, telling them they've clearly never been to one of these things. Well, to be fair, you needed to behave. But that's
just me.
Thing.
Just you, yeah. Everyone else is fine.
And then obviously the tone of Ross Desmond's statement, this notion that we're not the bullies, you're the bullies.
He said in quite a bullying way.
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
His fist was trembling. It was like that, Arthur.
Yeah. And I think that, when you're talking about, I said to Gall before we started, do you know how many articles there are about Celtic on the front page of the BBC website at the moment, of BBC Football?
No, but you can...
Five. And that's the top story, and it has been the top story since last night. I always like to reference that I hate listening to the Guardian Football Weekly 3 times a week. I'm always there. I will be there. And normally Scottish football gets like a cursory 90-second, what are those jocks up to then? Oh, did someone play a game? That's funny. Today they had 20 minutes. It was the top story. It was ahead of all the EFL Cup stuff that they generally do take quite seriously because it's Premiership teams. And it's like Celtic are an international laughingstock, and the story has become so big that it's like, wait, what's going on at this club? Why is this suddenly happening? Which is, again, a real positive for the protest sort of movement. But I'm glad that the attention is starting to go on, this is not a small hooligan group of fans that are tormenting these rich executives that are only trying to do their best for the club. It's becoming quite black and white what the situation is.
Yeah, but
I was just going to say as well, the one thing that courage is probably not the right word, but see the sort of reaction of at least 2 of the other people in the director's section. They looked like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I would imagine he would, if probably not, knowing the way that Celtic are run, but surely he would be the rest of the board don't do that. That's a PR disaster.
Don't make it worse.
Yeah. Brian Wilson said in that video, we're at our best, we're unified and all that, and then he has to stand beside Chris Mackay, thumbs up video and stuff like that was antagonistic. I don't know what he thought he was going to achieve by that, and I think that someone will probably have a word in his ear. I know that they are incompetent, but it's not a good look, and I think it is a PR disaster because he comes across like an Ed in that, I would say.
Yeah. See, a couple of things, right? The first thing being that, we just wanted things communicated to us how the club's been run. That's all. At the very start of the season, we were just looking for some sort of guidance on how the club's been run, what some of the processes were. None of that came. Then, when we were upset, when I say we, I mean the support, they started gaslighting us by putting out statements saying there's nothing wrong, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Then they started putting out other statements about Brendan Rodgers. It's only him. Everything's absolutely fine, and it's only him. We've been consistently asking for communication, and they have gaslit us to say everything's fine, everything's fine. Then there's that Nicholson video where he says, "Look, we're happy to take criticism. We're open to take criticism from the support. Every supporter has the right to criticise us." Do they? I mean, you've cut away fan media, who was really one of the only ways that the support could get in front of certain members of the board, not even members of the board, but could try and get their point across. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. You banned the Green Brigade, which is, a mass punishment. Like, it's as you say, Stuart, I'm saying that because it is quite clear now that if you actually took an objective look at this and you look at the timeline of everything that's happened, all the stuff about the saying about the attack of the steward and all that, where's the investigation to that? What's happening there? Because it's clear that there's no evidence, and the whole ban of the Green Brigade is all. It feels like it's just to get them out of the way. Are the boys next? What's going to happen with the home support? I wasn't at the Roma game because I didn't buy the package, but I was certainly at the League Cup final, and I tell you something else, as Stuart says, but and you were there, Barry, as well, that wasn't a minority of Celtic fans that were upset, put it that way. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of like they're running out of people to blame, I think, like what is going to be next, because they will, I don't doubt that they'll maybe...
Nancy's the next one.
Nancy will be the next one to blame. Yeah, they'll say it hasn't worked out, it hasn't sort of fitted our processes or whatever, the processes that are all fine that they said in that statement. But yeah, it's just sort of constant deflection tactics. We are doing nothing wrong, we're working hard, we're all Celtic men. As I said, that doesn't wash with me, because they're not paying into grounds, they're taking money out of the club, and if they had Celtic's best interests at heart, they would walk away, but they're not going to because of the salaries that they're on, because this is a shit show that is spiralling, and I think Stuart's right. I think that's why Law was like, I can see one way where this is going, and I need to distance myself from that. So I kind of liken it to the COVID season when we were almost pleading with Lennon, if you love this club as much as you say you do, walk away and give someone the opportunity to try and salvage this sort of once in a lifetime season. And it's the same for the board. Like, if you constantly say how big a Celtic fan you are, Brian Wilson said basically from birth, didn't he? He said last night, like...
That's a bit odd. That's a bit an odd, honestly.
That is. But they must surely see that this club is going in one direction, and they have influence to try and stop the rot by walking away, or at least trying to plead to Desmond to try and change things, but I don't think they will, because no one wants to rock the boat.
Peter Lawwell, sorry, Stuart, on you go.
It was just one quick point on Nancy being sort of the next man up to sort of take the blame. I completely understand why Nancy is operating as a lightning rod for the support, an angry support, who not only have had to endure a lot of off the pitch sort of turmoil this season, but now are really starting to see it all come home to roost. I think it's understandable. I also think it's just incredibly unfair, and I don't know if I actually don't think we're nearly an hour in. I'm not sure I've mentioned it, but my main feeling for Wilfried Nancy is just one of extreme sympathy, whether or not he's doing a good job or a bad job.
Yeah,
I don't really like pylons in general, and some of this stuff that he's having to deal with is just, I think it's pretty grim to watch, and that's why, again, it would have been for the best, I think, just to take him out of that situation, because it's so evident that it's not working. But I think it's so important that you don't lose sight. You can be angry at Wilfried Nancy, you can be frustrated with his naivety, with what he says, what he does, but just do not forget who put him there. And it's not necessarily always the person who's gone, yeah, that's a good opportunity, I'll take it, whose fault it actually is to be such a fish out of water. And that's why I wouldn't want him to take too much of the heat, but I understand the vitriol.
I think a lot of stuff, if and when Nancy is relieved of his duties, I think a lot of stuff will come out about the start time, the start date. Yeah. If he started the day after the Rangers game and he had a January and he had time, I think that's very different from being dropped into a week before a cup final.
Maybe flanked with 2 new signings.
Mm-hmm. 2 new signings and also someone
continuity coach.
Yep.
And just Peter Lawwell, I just want to read some of the statement. I think it's important. Peter Lawwell, Celtic announced that non-executive chairman Peter Lawwell has decided to step down December 31st. Peter Lawwell said, "It's with sadness that I announced my decision to stand down as chairman of Celtic. I believe that my 18 years as chief executive and 3 as chairman of the club," that's great corporate due diligence, that he was not only the CEO but also the chairman, but there you go, "have shown my ability to meet and overcome challenges. But abuse and threats from some sources have increased and are now intolerable. They've dismayed and alarmed my family at this stage of my life. I don't need this. I cannot accept this, and so I leave the club I have loved all my life. The motivations and aims of these detractors can be investigated by others. I prefer to look back on my career." Like, it's very aggressive in tone in terms of there needs to be investigation, the motivations of these people. Also, we're in a situation where the club can just say stuff without any evidence to back it up. Is he talking about the signs? Like, what's going on here?
Let's have it right. Some of it sounds like a Facebook status as well, when it's like, I'm going to leave it to yourself to figure out who I'm actually talking about here.
Snakes everywhere.
Snakes everywhere, the lot you.
Yeah. Also, it said Michael Nicholson was hugely disappointed. Sad day for Celtic. The abuse and threats directed towards Peter and the impact on the family and all that stuff. It's all very, it's coming out and it's very targeted towards the support, essentially. Peter Lawwell is gone. He feels like his family are in threat. But he'll stay another 2 weeks. Why not? Let him finish it the year.
Nice round number.
Aye, finish it out.
Go at the Christmas party.
Yeah.
That's it, aye. You need to get involved. Look, we are kind of, we're all over the place. This has been
We're like the Celtic back 3. Bags are not out.
Bags are not any of them. Mark McNally for me.
Just penny for Alistair Johnston's thoughts. I wonder if Alistair Johnston was like to the rest of them, like, by the way, this guy is not it. This guy's going to drown.
Or else the opposite. He's like, I'm telling you, I swear to God, he's good. Like, this isn't
he's
really him.
Corner.
I'm sorry. In terms of what would you like to see from the Celtic collective are obviously getting stronger and stronger. More people are joining. More people are trying to get involved. Barry, yourself, the game against Aberdeen on Sunday, what would you like to see, just from your personal point of view, would you like to see going forward?
I don't know if I suppose there is still 3 days or whatever, but I would like a boycott of some sort, whether that's leaving the game
not
at half time.
We've been doing that about 70 minutes the last few games.
Yes. Or even just not going into. I know that we had wasn't that successful at Rugby Park, the going in at the 12th minute, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe not going into the ground to the 20th minute or whatever, but I think boycotts needs to be the next move. I think it would show, you would hope that there'd be good numbers that would take part in it. But I think that's the kind of next logical step for me, that there is a boycott of maybe not going into the game or kind of waiting outside the main stand or whatever. But yeah, that for me is the kind of next way I would go.
Of yourself, Stu?
I always find a real escalation in protest being the post-match outside the stadium protest. Like, we're not leaving until something happens. Anyone for that?
Yeah, I'd be up for that. Yeah,
still there on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Chris Mackay and Michael Nicholson will be there helping out at the
I'm sure they will.
Paradise Pit still. That's what they.
Did you? Obviously, something we didn't cover was the fact that were led to believe that there was a kind of discussion meeting where Tisdale said that Celtic aren't in the top 100 clubs in Europe. Now, that's not been confirmed anywhere.
Was it not an association meeting or something like that?
Was it?
I don't know, but there was
I don't
another
think it was
quote.
association. I think it was.
There was another quote that he was like, "Now we had 196 right backs that we profiled, and none of them met our criteria."
Yeah.
I was like, "What? Do they have to be Scottish and shit?"
I think it was something to do with, was it selected investors or something? I'm not sure.
Let me just see. There was an end of year. This is my source. There was an end of year. I was just the huddle board. I think there was an end of year.
That's my source too.
There was an end of year meeting between a presentation, Q&A held, and Nicholson, Mackay, Tisdale, and Maloney were there. Tisdale is he does not view Celtic as one of Europe's top 100 clubs. Indeed, he ridiculed the notion. He was challenged, and Midtjylland was held up as a counter, among others. His excuse was they are on a different trajectory, different point of the journey. Apparently, Maloney looked affronted. Mackay was asked, "What is your target cash reserve, and when is it enough?"
That's the one who says like 30 million, which is up from what he'd said previously.
10 before. I mean,
40 million spent in January, then lovely.
And Tosh McKinley's in charge of the scouting, wasn't it? Or something like that in there as well.
Yeah.
I'd give him a game right now.
Yeah.
We can't take any of that as read because it is all kind of rumour and innuendo, but like...
Innuendo.
Nope.
Oh,
hello.
Lovely. But, you've got that, then you've got, obviously... this is the other point I want to make. Sorry, we're a bit all over the place. We're a bit flustered, but...
I'm not. I'm fine. Speak for yourself, mate.
I'm flustered.
Got nothing to prove.
Call that a teammate for you? You're letting the whole fucking... Anyway,
Innuendo.
just...
Say it again.
Just... you did just say it again, didn't you? Stuart, Peter Lawwell, right? Celtic have made the Champions League group stages 9 times in Lawwell's 18 season. On the face of it, a 50% hit rate looks very decent, but 5 of those 9 times came in his first 6 years. Oh. They've only made the UEFA Champions League 4 times in the last 12 attempts.
It's not great. Despite
the Champions route. No club in Europe has played more games under the official UEFA banner between 2010 and 2020 than Celtic. Despite Real Madrid winning the Champions League 4 times. But a lot of that is Celtic have only won 2 European knockout ties in Lawwell's time. Both came in his first season. It's been 17 years since Celtic last won it. So see when he talks about we're delighted that, a big achievement has been in European group stages. That just shows you what they think, Barry. That just shows you what their ambition is.
It's almost impossible for us not to play European group football.
Yeah.
But you could parachute from the
Champions. I was going to say we're going to give it a bloody good go next year.
The challenge has been set. Because was there not...
Neil Lennon, remember, under like Sion and Utrecht and all that. Like,
and remember, even under Ange, did we not? We played the Champions League qualifier, then we went to Europa, and then we parachuted into the conference.
That's right, yeah.
And that's Bodo Glimt.
Yeah.
Was that in the conference?
Yeah. So we played all 3 competitions. They probably thought, fucking first team ever to play all 3 competitions in the one season.
We are massive.
Yeah. 3 different tunes or whatever, but yeah, if that's their attitude, then
God help us. At anybody.
That's it, yeah.
Bit of fun.
Sorry. You got to make your own fun in this game.
Just as we finish up, right, we'll do more about like the roots of the issue and stuff over the next couple of weeks because, probably more in line with January because obviously it's Christmas is next week and stuff. But see this Aberdeen game, Stuart, like, innit? What do you know what I mean?
I don't see us winning. I think Aberdeen are on an upward trajectory or have been in the last few weeks. I think they can also be quite a physical team, and I think that they've got pace, they've got physicality, and I think anyone that's got the gumption to just go and play at Celtic will get joy. Anyone that can put us under the smallest bit of pressure is going to get some set pieces, and there's going to be individual mistakes, and the players are not playing for each other, and they're certainly not playing for the manager. So they might prove us wrong. I'd be very surprised if they did. And that's not good. That's not good.
Yeah, I don't. There's not even any point kind of thinking about who's going to line up or anything because it kind of almost doesn't matter at this point. Barry, you going to go along to the game?
I think so, yeah. I was just thinking, traditionally this game, the last game before Christmas, if it's a home game, the attendance is naturally down because people have Christmas things on, etc. But if it was to be significantly down, you'd imagine the board would just say, oh, well, it's always the case.
Yeah.
And just sidestep the issue. But in terms of the game itself, weirdly, probably for the first time in my life as a Celtic supporter, I'm not confident that we're going to win any game, regardless of the opposition. And that's a horrible feeling to be in, particularly when the success that we've had and the amount of money that we do have in the bank, and it's all self-inflicted. And I always think of this phrase throughout this season is that the biggest threat to Celtic is Celtic themselves. Like, we aren't here because Hearts have been brilliant or it's a resurgent Rangers. This is all our own doing. If we had taken care, even if we'd invested moderately at the right times in the summer transfer window, we would be, I'm confident we would be 6 or 7 points clear at least.
Signed a striker.
A striker, yeah. Even if we'd signed, I know he's kind of had terrible luck with hamstring injuries, but if we'd signed him at the start of the window, in the actual, then we probably would have been in a better position than we are now. So, yeah, dreading it, to be honest. The only thing that I think would encourage me is probably before today, and it's obviously looking likely that we aren't going to sack the manager. Sometimes you get that sort of uptick, don't you, when you think, right, we're kind of trying to fix the problems. But now if he's going to be in place, again, I do have sympathy for him because I feel that even as the game starts, there's going to be people on his back and sort of displeasure in the stands towards the board, which I totally support. But you can imagine it's probably going to spill into Nancy as well, just the way things are just now.
A quote from Dermot Desmond in 2020: "I'd like to be able to say that in 5 years' time our team is better than any of the great teams that were led by Martin, Gordon, Brendan and Lenny."
It's one of the worst teams we've maybe ever had.
Absolutely. We've got lots coming up for you on the Cynic, our Celtics podcast subscription service. Check it out at thecynic.co. You can also go to Patreon and search for The Cynic. We're producing about over 30 podcasts per month, all year round, so check us out. Stuart Dugan, a pleasure as always, and final Cynic Weekly of the year. Thanks for your input.
I hope everyone has a really nice Christmas in spite of Celtic, and see you in the new year, I suppose.
Lovely. Barry, yourself?
I echo those sentiments, and ho ho ho, it's time to go.
Very good, lad. From Barry Gallagher, from Stuart Dugan, from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the Cynic Weekly, and we'll speak to you down the road.